Very little water because it's close to the river. It's close. It's on this ridge. It's close to the river. But as we move our way out toward the lake, I will give you depth of water during Katrina. Now, Katrina happened 16 years ago. In fact, it's a little over 16 years. So this is Esplanade Avenue. The trees you see, the beautiful oak trees you see with the canopies, are live oaks. Now, live oaks are throughout other parts of the United States. They've been exported the seeds to other places. Places like Charleston, South Carolina. There's live oaks in Florida, the Panhandle area along the water. These trees keep a canopy 365 days of leaves. They never completely shed all their leaves. You see leaves on the ground, they do shed leaves, and the fern that grows along their branches is called a resurrection fern. Now, it's pretty green right now because we've had rain, but if we go like 4 or 5 days without rain, it will turn brown like it's dead. As soon as the water hits it, it turns green. Now, this building to my right is several others. Went to Marcellus. The Marcellus family is from Treme. Louis Armstrong, he's not from Treme, but he got in trouble in Treme, and somebody taught him how to play a horn. So he hung out in Treme. Trombone Shorty, he's one of our newest, I call him a rock star trumpet player, slide trumpet player. He's from this neighborhood. This white building to my right is the oldest African American Catholic church, St. Augustine. It supported the slaves and the free people of color in this neighborhood. It also, earlier days, it buried slaves alongside. You'll see the shackles and the cross here to my right. So this is an active, working Catholic church. Like again, this is the home church for the Marcellus family. So this is Treme, and we'll go on. And inside of Treme is Louis Armstrong Park, and inside of Louis Armstrong Park is Congo Square. Now, Congo Square, slaves are off on Sundays. They would go to Congo Square to play music from their countries, socialize, and pretty much get to hook up, meet people, meet other opposite sex and stuff. That was Congo Square. And again, it is still recognized inside of, and I guess that's one of the reasons they named this park Louis Armstrong Park, by being in Treme. The other place to my right here, the building, is the Municipal Auditorium. It has not been put into service since, and they call it, they usually list it as the Creole area. Well, it was. But as we start to get closer to the lake, a lot of Americans and some English started to build homes just toward the bayou from here, because it's a nice neighborhood. It's called the Gentilly area. Well, you know about our Mardi Gras. This is where they have a big celebration under the bridge here during Mardi Gras. One of the parades kind of break away from going on Canal Street and come into this neighborhood. One of the African American parades, the Zulu parade. They have a big party here. So this is the area. This is Claiborne and Orleans Avenue. And beyond here, you may have heard of a restaurant called Dooky Chase. Leah Chase just passed away this year. She was 92 or 93 years old. Now, during Katrina, we're probably around 9 to 10 feet of water here. Yep, 9 to 10 feet. Easy. Away from the river, the depth of the water goes up. Now, And it goes up and down because some areas are a little higher, like Esplanade Avenue we were on. We're going back to Esplanade now. But for the most part, you had about 9 to 10 feet of water here. They put up walls in the marsh to kind of be of a breakaway for any surges. Because what happened with Katrina wasn't so much the storm hitting us, it was a surge that came in. The surge came in just like the explorers came in from Alabama, from the Gulf, through the lakes, Lake Catherine, into Lake Pontchartrain. And that surge was about 35 feet. That storm was pushing. Now the main storm was going east of us, but the surge was coming toward the coast, and it entered the lakes, Lake Catherine, Lake Bourne, and finally into Lake Pontchartrain. And when that surge hit the levees and a lot of what we call outfall canals, that's the canal that we pump water out of the city. And I'll show you some of them, and I'll show you the break where this house we were visiting at. So along this street, Esplanade, we have a lot of bed and breakfast. This is one, Edgar Degas, a French impressionist, kind of lived here for about 6 years. Changed the way he did his work. The school you see to my left is a John McDonald. We have 42 John McDonald schools in the city of New Orleans. We had. I'm not sure if they put them all back into service. They just finished with this one last year. Now, John McDonald was a shipping magnate from Baltimore, Maryland. Moved to New Orleans around 1840. Started a shipping business at the port. Made a lot of money, became rich. And upon his death, he donated money for opening public schools here in New Orleans and in Baltimore. He also bought 100 acres of our nearly 1,600 acre city park, largest city park in the United States. He donated it to the city. So very generous man. He did a lot for the city. Each weekend, they set up about 9 stages, all kind of food vendors, and about 4 different tents. The gospel tent, the blues tent. They have a couple other music genre tent, and you have Zydeco music, you have bluegrass, you have jazz, you have rock and roll. In fact, a couple of years ago, the Rolling Stones were supposed to play at our New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, but that's when Mick Jagger had the little heart problem, and he was off a tour, so he had to cancel out. But he did come back and play the Superdome, so he did come back to see us. So this is the Gentilly area. Now you see how the homes are kind of recessed back from each other? This is for 2 reasons: to give you privacy on your front porch, especially during the hot summers, and also to get the air from the bayou and the lake. So it gave everybody a little bit of a breeze. And what happens, the breeze come underneath these oak trees during the summertime, and the oak trees kind of help keep the air a little cool. Now, it's not a lot, but that's how people survive here in the summertime, with the breeze. Now, these are burial crypts. There's several types. This is an association. If you're a member of this association, when your family member dies, you can be buried here, if there's room. Now, a year and a day is what we use, state law, the way you can open these crypts up, take the old coffin and the remains out, and the remains go to the back of the crypt. There's a hole. In other words, a year and a day doesn't sound like a long time, but with the heat and humidity inside of these crypts, it's almost like a self-cremation.
there's nothing left but major bones, probably skull, maybe the femur and everything. So these remains never leave this crypt. So they take the old coffin out, they take the remains and push to the back of the crypt on this particular one, and it goes to the ground and continue to deteriorate. Okay? They take the old coffin, throw it away, put the new coffin and body in, and reseal it. And that process starts over again. Now, on this one, this is a family crypt. There's normally two spots. There's a shelf halfway in, up. And what happens in a family crypt, they'll take the coffin out again, the remains go in a bag. In the very front of this crypt, there's a hole. They take that bag from the remains from the other coffin and put down in that hole so the remains can continue to deteriorate. They take the old coffin, throw it away, put the new coffin and reseal it. Again, summertime temperatures inside these crypts get up over 400 degrees. So bodies are really, it's almost like a self-cremation. Any Catholics in here? Any Catholics? Okay. So you're aware that cremation until 2015 was a sin. I don't know if you knew that, but I'm Catholic. So after 2015, I'm going to show you what we've done in the graveyards for your urns and stuff. So again, inside of some of these crypts, it may have been over the years, 40 or 50 different people buried inside. Yeah, they got some in the city, 80 bodies over the years from the 1700s have gone inside some of these crypts. And you see names on the front. Let's walk down a little bit. You see names on some of them. You see the names on this one. And this is a good example. And I'm sure this is not all the names that's been inside of this crypt. Sometimes they put them on the side, but you remember, they got to open that slab and close it every time. And slabs break, and they have to replace them. And normally they don't put the names back on the new slab. So, like I said, I know one crypt in the city that had like 80-something people buried in it. And the records are kept by the Catholic Church or whoever runs the graveyard, whether it be a Baptist graveyard, or a Jewish graveyard. You don't own the property. You own your family crypt. You lease the property. The Catholic Church don't sell property. You're not in business to sell property. They own the ground. Now, for instance, a family completely, everyone dies in the family. What happens to the crypt? Okay? I'm going to show you what happens to the crypt. What happens to the crypt? The original remains stay in that hole. And what they do, they tear the old crypt down and they build a new crypt on top of that location. And they lease it out to another family. Now this came over to us from Haiti. They do crypts in Portugal and Spain. They have crypts, okay? And it came to New Orleans because we can't bury in the ground. If you dig a hole during our rainy season, a foot, some places a foot, it will fill up with water. So if you put bodies in the ground, what's gonna happen to that coffin? It's just gonna pop up. Earlier city, they tried to bury people on the levees. When the river came up, there were coffins floating down the river. So we've always had this problem about burying. We don't have a whole lot of land here. We're very restricted with land. So they brought this process over from Haiti, and it works. We've had 5,000 or 6,000 people during the yellow fever epidemics during the summers in New Orleans. They didn't know the mosquitoes was causing yellow fever. So you remember, they didn't embalm people then. They would stack coffins up in graveyards because they was trying to get them buried in some of these crypts. And at that particular time, not everybody in them coffins were dead. You may have heard this thing, Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
They used to tie strings on the people's hands. So if they woke up, the night watchman or the day watchman would hear bells go off. He said, I got a live one. This is true. This is what happened. They had coffins stacked up. And they would go over and let them out. They've even opened up coffins and found scratch marks on the top of it. People are actually buried alive. They didn't embalm people then. So they were still alive. All I'm telling you, you can look up, you can Google it, whatever you want to do. This is the way we do it. And this is the only way we can bury people in mass in a museum. Now, every family can't afford a crypt. Listen, if you look behind you, you remember at the Catholic Church, they will bury you here. And one of their graveyards, they have several graveyards, okay? You're not going to be left out. Now, if your crypt is, say for instance, you had 2 people die in less than a year today, there are holding spots until it's time to put your family member in your crypt. Any other questions?
How many coffins do the crypts hold?
Beg your pardon?
How many coffins do they have in
2. You can measure a coffin. There's a shelf about halfway up. You can put 2 coffins in this one. Some of them put 4. We'll see some. Let's walk this way. Compare with money. We'll see some millionaire and billionaire crypts that look like houses. And look, this stuff is made out of granite and marble. Less than a year old. Whatever family was here before, family members are gone. But their remains that was left inside of this crypt is in that ground. And a new family, the Hahn family, has this crypt now. This is a priest crypt. The priest is a priest forever. Mother Teresa, that's the actual size she was. Very short. Huh? Beautiful woman. She's dedicated her life to serving the sick. And you can see right here, you got what? 6 square. 12? No, 16. 12 spaces. Yeah, 12 spaces. 12 coffins can go in there. And they do it the same way. When they take one out, they keep the remains in a bag. It goes to the front part of the crypt. Put your vases out. That's your family crypt. You put whatever flowers or vases out. You put an angel on your crypt. Look at that. Because you want to spend on your family crypt. So you have a fancy one down here. Now, I tell you about cremation, Catholic Church put this up in the graveyard to put your urn instead of leaving it on a fireplace mantle at your house or in the basement somewhere. You can actually bring it to the graveyard. I say, for instance, you had a baby die in a family, and you had 2 people buried inside of your crypt. Sometimes they open the crypts up, okay, and bury the baby in one of the coffins, or a small child in one of the coffins with a relative. That happens. Beverly Skelly Barnes. Her crypt is made out of granite with stained glass windows. You can look inside. Take a look inside if you want. Take pictures. To build something like this now is well over $1 million. And again, you do not own the property.
That's
You just own your family crypt. To my left is another association, the Masons. That's it. You know, there's only one name on there, so they don't put many names on it. But all the records are kept by the Catholic Church. Now, if you're a member of a Catholic church in town, and if they have their own graveyard, they have the best records. They have better records in the state on births, baptisms, and stuff. Because my family is from outside the city. The church has all the records for the graveyard right next to it. And my family trips are out that way.
Sometimes, well, bayou doesn't have its own flow like a river. Sometimes it's connected to like this bayou is connected to Lake Pontchartrain, and Lake Pontchartrain is connected to the Gulf. It'll have a flow. Sometime in the swamp, you'll run across a bayou. It's just sitting there. I always call bayou layback waterways. Now, City Park, almost 1,600 acres. You can do anything recreational, relax in this park. You can fish. I learned how to fish as a kid in this park. The lagoons are fresh water, okay? Like most places in New Orleans, you're gonna find a good restaurant. And this museum has a good restaurant. Our World War II museum has a great restaurant, and we'll be driving through there later on in the tour. So, there's no lack of good restaurants in this city, believe me. So, I played junior high and senior high football in the stadium in this park. The junior college I attended was in this park. They have equestrian, they have 2 major PGA courses in this park. Before the storm, there were 3 courses, golf courses. There's Frisbee courses. I didn't know what a Frisbee course was, so somebody had to show it to me. Tennis courts, soccer fields, rugby fields. A lot of recreational as far as if you want to have picnics and family reunions and bar mitzvahs, whatever. You can rent shelters inside of this park. Kiddie land, this train track we just went over. It's a little train that goes around this part of the park. The beautiful trees. To my left is a sculpture garden. A lot of visitors have donated art from all over the world to that sculpture garden, and that is to my left. One of the the 4 venues, wedding venues in this park. Pavilion of 2 Sisters to my right. And right next to it is the Rose Garden, another wedding venue. And they have one we're not going to pass is Pop Fountain further into the park. And there's one on the other side, right before Cafe Du Monde. I'm going to show you. Kiddie Land, Storyland. I'm gonna give away my age, but my grandmother took me here when I was a kid. It still exists. This park is, it's just a beautiful place to come hang out and bring the family. Bike riding trails, jogging trails. You can rent bikes. You can rent quad bikes if you want to take your whole family on this little quad. It's like a little carriage that you can rent to pump around. Storyland, been here as long as I know. And they just built a new water park here across the street. Now that wasn't there when I was a kid. So this is only a small bit of this park. And as we go toward the lake, you'll see some more of it. And as we be driving along the bayou, I'm just trying to give you an idea about this park. Now, there's so much recreational areas in this city. A lot of people don't, if you don't get out, I always tell my visitors there's more to New Orleans than Bourbon Street. Taking people from hotels out here for weddings. Again, when you go into the building here, Cafe Du Monde, there's University of New Orleans and Southern University in New Orleans branch. The main campus is in Baton Rouge. And across the river in Algiers, which is part of New Orleans, the Algiers part is, it's whole. So when that levees broke out here, man, it wasn't nothing for to get upwards of over 20 feet of water out here. No pump operators, so that water lingered in here for well over a month. We don't have the natural drainage like most areas have. And you'll notice when we get by the lake, the road we're driving on is going to be right at sea level. When we go across that levee by the lake, and you look back, you say, well, that road was almost the same level. You'll see quite a few empty lots. There wasn't any empty lots before the hurricane. A lot of the homes that were never built back, they tore them down. They had a government program called Road Home, that if you decided you didn't want to build back, your home was, was structurally damaged, you took your insurance money and paid off your mortgages or whatever, and they gave you money, grant money, to buy your property back from you. Road Home program. As we go through this light, you'll see a big empty lot to the right. That used to be a retirement home, first inch per hour, and after that it drops back to about half an inch an hour. So that means we're going to have some street flooding, and sometimes even into some of the homes. So that's one of the benefits I tell people. You live in a marshy, low area. I mean, you have them type of problems. Now, the original homes we saw in the Marigny were off the ground. They're built off the ground. Well, during the late 60s, early 70s, they start building these slab homes in Louisiana and New Orleans area. I don't know what happened. That happened. I don't know if it's cheaper to build that way. There's a modern way to build homes, but they're actually going back with city pumps. They have city pumps, drainage pumps in the city. This is an outfall canal. It pumps out this canal and it heads toward the lake. When it gets to the lake, you have the bigger pumps I told you about that were hurricane proof, up to 300 miles an hour. Now, what happened during Katrina, the storm was going east toward Mississippi. It kicked the storm surge through the lakes from the Gulf into Lake Pontchartrain. And when it got to Lake Pontchartrain, that storm surge was estimated to be anywhere from 25 to 35 feet high. Now you can imagine all this energy with water being pushed into this lake. And what happened, this wall right behind us, there's a little white marking down right behind this beige house here. That's where that wall broke. Instead of water being pumped out, water was being pushed in by that storm surge. And we'll get out. This is what a Katrina house is. I want to show you about this Katrina house. But to give you an idea, we've had several outfall canal breaks and several levee breaks because, water will find a leak. If you got one in your roof or somewhere else, water will find a leak, and the pressure that was coming in. You can only imagine that type of surge. The surge was so strong, we have an interstate in New Orleans East, I-10, that goes out. I don't know if any of you drove in on that bridge. It's a 7.5 mile bridge, okay? So the bridge before Katrina was lower, the interstate bridge. And what happened when that surge hit that bridge, it lifted the floor up off of that bridge and dumped it in the lake. That's how powerful that surge was. You can imagine the cement and steel, because interstates and bridges like that aren't physically connected to the pilings. They sit on these pilings by the weight of the bridge, and it's a lot of weight. So that surge lifted that roadway up, and not all the bridge, but parts of it, and you couldn't go out, leave the city that way. So what they did with that bridge, they lifted it up, they rebuilt it, and it's a little bit higher now. So we'll be getting out. You don't have to get out, but this is the Katrina house. I want to show you, we'll be here about 10 minutes or so. Okay. Not everybody evacuated. Right. Because when they said the storm was going east,
They said, well, I'm not getting on the highway. I mean, I've done this before. This is drilled. And they didn't realize there wasn't much of a wind. They had some roof damage in the city. So a couple people said, I'm not going anywhere. Well, they didn't think about that surge. When that surge came in, that Monday morning, it was about 8, 9 o'clock, man, it pumped into these outfall canals. Normally had water going out, it was coming in, pressure-wise. And you can look on this, this is one of the original, look where the mark is on that house, that 2-story house. Where that mold stops, that's about where the water was. Can you imagine that? So this is a house they kept, sealed it up. So you look inside, you see the mold and everything inside, it's not gonna hurt you. It's all sealed with plexiglass and everything. Now the young kids, watch the ants. They got ant piles right by the bushes. I don't want you to get into the red ants. It's not good. So be careful for everybody not to walk in there. But you can look in the windows. These 2 windows on the left will show you how they found their home when they came back. The water was drained, it was drained out. You can see how the furniture, and on the pillars, they actually had pictures of the original house. All right, look. And they give you a little all on these pillars, little signs to tell you. Now, on the other 2 windows, it shows you how you have to put the house back into service. Strip all the rock out, insulation, flooring up. You have to take bleach or some other type of sanitizer to spray it, and then air it out. And normally, you got to replace your electrical wires, especially this type. This house this level. That's why you see so many new construction here. Majority of the homes were torn down. These buildings behind you they built this after they pulled down the homes for single bed. A lot of veterans are homeless. They built this. Come on up. Again, watch these ants. I see footprints around. See the picture of the original room? Right there, that piano. Now, every building had to be checked for bodies. And they put an X on the building. Top of the X, the date it was checked. To the left, the initials who checked it. On the bottom, if any bodies were found, the number. This particular house has a 0. Right inside of the door, you can see that X. See that X? Right there. Yep. If you look inside the door on the wall here, you can see that X, I tell you that.
So I came to New Orleans, I think like 10 months after Katrina.
Right.
And I just remember hearing the pounding of the steel to make the levees.
Yeah.
24 hours a day.
24 hours a day.
For months of that.
Hispanic labor, the city getting back together now. A lot of these things came in. I'm sure there was some illegal, but labor, the amount of work, you know. That's who we built this city. And we always had a big Honduran community. A lot of them were crafts and trade. So this neighborhood was white out. They had a few homes you see on and a lot of them, some of them were raised. They had companies that raised them up and put them on.
On this river, the city is an important port for the United States. And with the canal, Panama Canal being expanded, being widened, we will see bigger ships, cargo ships, the ones that couldn't get through the canal, the ones that had to dock on the west coast, come through the port of New Orleans and Miami and along the east coast now. Some of the many festivals we have all year long, and we have festivals for everything. You drop your hat in New Orleans, there's a festival for it. And I kid you not, and I'm just stressing, it's a Greek festival, that church right there. They have it for 2 weekends. Big festival. Big Greek festival. This area here, now they use the bayou as an outfall canal too. There are some pumps that pump water out when the bayou gets real high into the lake. But this area here before 1930s was marsh. And what they did to build this land so they can build homes in here, they dredged the lake for sand and dirt. And they built up this area so they can build homes. But during Katrina, we're talking 15 to 20 feet of water in here in these homes. Now you can see look at the height of the levees out here. Now, you saw the flood walls for the river, and these are the levees for the lake. A lot higher, a lot bigger, a lot thicker, because the threat here is a lot greater than it is for the river. The river comes up gradually. What happens here could happen within a day or so with the storm surge. So look out, we're at sea level, driving at sea level right now. And that lake, and even these levees will have what they call spillover from the surge, but they will hold. And that's why we have the pumps. And I'm going to show you our new pumps we have. I call them the bunker pumps. 300 miles an hour proof, hurricane proof bunkers. Again, if a storm's over 300 miles an hour, I want to get out of here quick. Because I've been in some that were 120, and it wasn't anything nice. You have enough provisions and fuel and food to survive up to 60 days if necessary. Now the lake is not a deep lake. That makes it a dangerous lake. Because when you get storm waters or thunderstorm on this lake right here, it's a shallow lake. On average, it's about 16 to 18 feet deep. So I've been out there with my father on his boat, and we got caught in a storm, and it's not nice. Shallow water in rough water is not nice. So the lake is shallow. Again, it's brackish water. You can catch a freshwater bass, and in the next row you can catch a saltwater speckled trout or a redfish. So you have the mixture of the salt and fresh water in this lake. But above New Orleans, we have what we call the spillway. Now we have two major spillways in Louisiana, and they both protect two of the biggest cities in Louisiana, New Orleans, and then upriver Baton Rouge. Now what happens with the spillway, when the river gets so high that they have to open the spillway to kind of protect the levees and bring the level of the river down. We have the Marganza Spillway about 25 miles north of New Orleans. And when they open that spillway, it flows across into the lake, and then it goes out toward the Gulf. It's a relief valve. And above Baton Rouge, there's a Marganza Spillway that pretty much works the same way. Without these spillways, man, sometime that river gets so high, and I'm going to show you when we get around the river, that's going to be toward the end of our tour. I'll let you know how high that river gets. It gets high, especially in the spring. Our lighthouse is the white building with the red roof. That's the entrance to the yacht harbor. We have two yacht harbors in New Orleans, one behind us at the airport, Lakefront Airport, and this one. Now you notice the buildings over here are jacked up, the restaurants. Of course, because none of this is protected. This is unprotected area of the lakefront, of the city. So before a storm, they advise you to get out of here with your cars and a lot of your personal property, because when they close this gate up ahead here, you just, hey, you're on your own. You know you could get caught in floodwaters here. That's one building that's not elevated, but the majority of these buildings are elevated. This apartment complex is kind of elevated. Look like about 10 feet. That's what they accounted for. 3,500. All the empty lots you see. The streets are still being worked on in this neighborhood, believe it or not. So we're homes. New construction, a lot of new construction, like the other neighborhood we saw. Remember the Basin Street Canal I told you about, the Irish digging? Well, it started at that yacht club back here. That Basin Street Canal went along to my left. This, we call them neutral ground, but a medium to my left. That canal was there. And that canal continued on to the expressway that we'll be driving uptown on. All that was the Basin Street Canal. So they hand dug this canal from the lake along this route right here, all the way downtown. Like I said, over 20,000 men died digging that canal. Mule wagon, hand dug. Pumping station off to the right has 3 pumps. And it's not for pumping water out of the neighborhood. It's for pumping water out of this little interchange for the interstate. Part of that Basin Street Canal came right through here. So it's kind of low, and they didn't build it back up higher enough. So what happens during a heavy rain, not so much a hurricane or anything, just a heavy thunderstorm we have, will flood this area so bad. So they built that pumping station just to drain this area. I've seen on news tractor trailers underneath this train trestle in front of us, completely flooded out over the top of the cabs from a regular rain, like a April-May rain. Now, I promise you the millionaire and billionaire crypts or graveyards, Metairie Cemetery is off to your right. And the cemetery off to your left is a Baptist cemetery, kind of modest. Now, the guy who started Popeye's Chicken, Al Copeland, he's buried right off of, right in, you'll see 2 crypts by themselves, brand new crypts. There's 2 crypts are straight ahead there, sits by themselves. Look at the room and spacing in between the crypts. Former owner of the Saints, Tom Benson, has a house-type crypt. So that is where our richer folks should be buried in their family crypts. The more money you have, the bigger your home, your family crypts. By Holy Name Nuns for African American kids. It is one of the biggest pharmacy schools in the United States. Started off as a very meager, small building, and all the green roofs in this whole area off to the right here is now Xavier University. They have pre-med and a few other things, but their big thing is when you graduate from pharmacy school here at Xavier, you graduate with a master's degree in pharmacy, and you also graduate with a job. So we have students from all over the world that come to Xavier here for pharmacy. One of our major hospitals, actually we lost 2 of our major hospitals. Our public hospital was called Charity Hospital. I'm not sure if you remember it, how we had people up on ICU and babies and incubators. All right, well, some smart person had the generators in the basement, and the basement, of course, flooded. So they had no power. They tried to drop generators off on the roof. It succeeded for a little while, but it flooded out. So we moved our medical areas. The VA hospital also flooded out. It was all right behind that Superdome. Mercedes-Benz Superdome was the old hospital area. Our new hospital area is a little further back toward us. New VA hospital, new public hospital. Louisiana Superdome is the second oldest dome ever built in the United States for sporting and concerts. We use this place. That's why New Orleans Saints play football now. The Smoothie King Center, next to it, is where our professional basketball team, the Pelicans, play ball. During the storm, Hurricane peeled part of the roof off of that Superdome and flooded the area in the bottom. So a lot of people thought that was a good place to go for refuge. It was not. The only place that wasn't flooding was the convention center, close to the river, on the river, the high ground of the city. So that's where they ended up going. People were left in the city. That's where the buses was able to respond to move people. People in New Orleans were evacuated to all 50 states in the Union. All 50 states. So they scattered these people all over. One of the many Catholic churches being used as, and all the churches, historical churches here, whether it be Presbyterian or the Jewish synagogues, they use them for destination weddings. I've worked weddings with the buses. We have larger buses that we use to transport people from the hotels to a lot of these wedding venues. Normally on the day, you see that's my other bus from Southern Style Tours. But normally you would see, I believe there's 15 to 20 different tour companies with buses and vans or more. And we're not having it because we don't have the volume of tourists. Now a lot of our tourists book online, so this company deals with a lot of online. So that's why we're pretty busy now. Also, what you would see uptown here and in other areas of the city, you would see movie making. We give out film credits to the movie companies, and they call the New Orleans area, Louisiana area, the Hollywood of the South. They film Queen Sugar, Oprah outside of the city. Certain movies like Ray Charles and Transformer was filmed in the city. NCIS New Orleans, you'll see it sometimes just doing tours. They'll be doing filming all over the city. It's starting back. Usually sometimes I've seen as many as 7 different movie sets going on in my tour. So you'll see it. The Garden District, we're in the Garden District. One of the unique features here is above ground basements. People wanted basements when they came here from New England and other parts. So to achieve that, they built the steps up above a floor, which you would call a floor. You can see it here. That's a basement, above ground basement. Another example is this house here to my right. The stairs come up to the first floor, and that's a 2-story house. The bottom part was considered a basement. And the ironwork up here is so beautiful. I mean, we'll see some corn stalks on the fences, the different ironwork. A lot of homes up here had 2 sets of stairs that go up because the English had a custom where men and women didn't go up the same steps. One went up one side, the other one went up the other side. Lafayette Cemetery. Now look at the crypts here. The condition of them. They're old. They date back to the early 1700s. It's a lot different from what the crypts we looked at in St. Louis Cemetery, number 3, the one we visited. This is one of the most visited cemeteries in the city, and it's locked up. If you're usually allowed to go inside of here, and I'm not sure why they locked it up. Everything changes almost daily due to the pandemic. So I'm not sure what's open, what's not open. You can see people looking at it. The guide here, we have the walking guides that guide people through this neighborhood. So there are a few tour operators out. If you heard of one of our famous restaurants here, it's called Commander's Palace. It is the best service restaurant in the city. I think it is. My wife and I visited. I took her there for her birthday one time. White cloth tables, service. I'm not saying that other restaurants didn't have good service. I'm not talking about the food. This restaurant it keeps up the service line. Unbelievable service. It's right here to my right. You look down and see this blue and white awnings. It used to be a house. They converted it into a restaurant. It is part of the Brennan's family restaurants. They have 8 of them in the city. Yep. Give you a look at some of the different homes in this neighborhood. Now, I'm gonna let some of this traffic get by me. This home, the next one home to the right, was completely torn down. But what they did, the new home was built exactly the way the old home looked on the outside. So that's a new home, brand new. They just finished that less than a year ago. You can see the builder, he still has his name on the fence. I'm not sure if termites ate it up, or it was in such bad condition they had to tear it down, but they built the outside exactly the way the old one looked. Nicolas Cage old house to the left. Beautiful home. Example. And he has the shutters. Now, there aren't a lot of homes up here with shutters. Shutters is more of a Creole thing. You'll see a few. Most of the people here uptown want you to look and they have their curtains open sometimes where you can look in and see their chandeliers and all their finery inside. We have a lot of private schools up here, some Catholic, some just regular private schools. Like Newman, I mentioned Newman with the Manning sent their son to, and their grandson. The temperature is okay in the bus, nobody's complaining. Or what? But they stopped any filming, further filming in this home. That is that's a good example of above ground basement. And up and down Jackson Avenue, this is Jackson Avenue, you'll see some of these finer mansions because these were some of the first major mansions built in the Garden District. They all have this fine ironwork for security, for the gates, and there's an example of the 2 steps. I told you about 2 stairways where men went up one side and women went up the other side. I don't know why, they couldn't see anything with the big dresses anyway, but that was their customs. Now we're coming up on Magazine Street. If you like antiques, you like to shop antiques, go throughout shop. Come in town, they want to do second line parades. They use these umbrellas. I'm sure there may be some rain umbrellas in that shop, but his main business is for weddings and funerals and different parade and Mardi Gras clubs that use these umbrellas to march with. That's where his bread and butter is, with umbrellas. Again, he may have some rain umbrellas in there, but majority of the umbrellas in there are fancy. And you can order your umbrellas, you can have them made and put on it the colors and what you want put on them through that shop. Another wedding venue, this is Italian, it's like an Italian hall for having weddings here. Also in this neighborhood, this club up here, Half Moon Bar, was used in Ray Charles' movie, Ray. It was filmed in this neighborhood because it looked a little bit like Seattle, where the original Ray started his music career at, Ray Charles. Now we have these boulevard parks. You know, have you ever seen pictures of Paris? Have you ever been to Paris or France? they have these boulevard parks. This is one of our boulevard parks. It's real neat and unique. There's a fountain further up on the left. I've taken a lot of bridal parties to have their pictures taken at the fountain inside of this park. So this is a boulevard park. And we, like I said, we have a lot of parks in the city. The French are very big on parks. So this neighborhood right here kind of transcends from the English back to the French. Now you see these are all new buildings. They're building one here in the corner, but they're building them back like the older buildings here. Keeping the neighborhood the same. That's the way you have to build. You have no choice. These neighborhood has these historical boards. Your first stop is them. Then your second stop will be the building department. Now, our newest attraction in the city is the World War II Museum. The reason they put the World War II Museum in New Orleans is because of Andrew Higgins. Mr. Andrew Higgins owned the boatyard. He was originally from Mobile, Alabama. He came to New Orleans, started a boatyard. Now, Gary Sinise and Tom Hanks raised money to build this, and they raised a lot of money. It's a beautiful museum. Well, Andrew Higgins had the contract to build PT boats and landing crafts. He was the first one ever to employ women, men, and people of color, over 20,000 people in his boatyard on their so-called assembly line. 20,000 people. First time, men and women, because you remember, men and women never worked together. That was unheard of. So we driving through it. I'm a kind of spot. Yeah. And there's a few visitors today. There goes a landing craft. And they bring in parts of landing crafts and PT boats from all over the world. And they have collectors all over the world. They have a working PT boat out of the lake that they actually give rides to. Ride on the PT boat. That's neat. A lot of World War II veterans, and we're losing them by the day now. Not many. They come once a year. They have ceremonies for them here. So they come visit the city, and they have lunch and everything for them. And a lot of them are really, I mean, they've gotten up into age and illnesses and stuff. But it's a good thing. We have that. Now this is also our warehouse district. Before we had containers, merchandise was shipped down river by boat or later on by train and stored in these warehouses. And as stuff came in to be shipped back out, they had to be stored in these warehouses. A lot of these warehouses are condominiums, restaurants, hotels, and a few warehouses exist. A lot of young chefs have separate halls, and sometimes you'll have 5 or 6 different conventions going on at the same time. So you have an option. And some of the hotels, like the Hilton Riverside, they have smaller convention halls inside of the hotels. The Hyatt Regency, right by the Superdome, they have their own for smaller convention halls too. They recently built this area outside of the convention hall. At one time, it was 4 lanes of traffic here, and I thought it would be a major traffic headache for us dropping people off. Well, they came up with this idea that the buses drop off people here at this bus area, and Uber and taxis are just right past here. So no one is dropped off in front of a hall. You have to go to these transportation centers, and it made this area, when you walk out of the doors, you had like a pedestrian mall where people can come out and maybe smoke a cigarette or just come outside to get out of the convention hall and walk up and down the convention hall. The bridge that we just driving under is the Mississippi River Bridge, and we'll see it at the river. It goes across the river to Algiers, which is part of New Orleans, a little small sliver of land on that side of the river. And as you go to the right, it's Jefferson Parish. Now we call counties parishes in Louisiana. Only state that uses that word for counties. So New Orleans is Orleans Parish. I live in Jefferson Parish, which is kind of like the suburbs of the city. That power plant, old abandoned power plant in front of us, is where they filmed one of the Transformer movies. They filmed several other movies there too, but that's one I know of. One of my young guests informed me that's where they filmed Transformers. So I learned from you, and they learned from me. This is also going to be they're tearing that plant down. They're going to extend the convention center over this boulevard, and they're building another entertainment area along with a 400-bed hotel. This was delayed this year because of the pandemic, but it's at fully funded, ready to go for 2021. Now I'm taking you to, and let me see if the doors are open before oh, they're open. This is Mardi Gras World. You couldn't visit New Orleans without seeing how we put Mardi Gras on. Now Mardi Gras World is Blaine Kern artists. These are the people that decorate the floats. Every year, floats are brought here to this warehouse to be redecorated, because every year there's a different theme for the parades, the parade clubs. All the parades have their clubs, people that join these clubs. So they send their floats over here to Blaine Kern and other artists around the metropolitan New Orleans area. So if you look inside this door, you'll see some of the figurines that they make up here. And some floats. Give you an idea. That's what they do. That's where all the magics get created. Not just for Mardi Gras now. They make floats and figurines for Disney and, Orlando. They do a lot of the figurines and artwork for private parties around the United States, whether it be a major bar mitzvahs in New York City for somebody, or any and everything. They do statuettes. They make them out of styrofoam, fiberglass. Originally, a lot of work was on these floats was paper mache and sealed on the floats to protect it against the rain. Now you'll get to see, if this door is open, we'll see some more floats inside of here if you want to take pictures. They got the door halfway open. We won't be able to see. I take what I can get. This is like we call this lanyard. This is extra for the tour. You can float up inside. Yes. So that's our Mardi Gras floats. That's Mardi Gras World. They were located in Algiers across the river, and they brought their business over here, and they to entertain the tourists, give you an idea how they do it. You go visit them and do their tour. They teach you how to make Mardi Gras masks in there, and they give you the history of Mardi Gras. Now, Mardi Gras is not original to New Orleans. Mardi Gras started in Mobile, Alabama, where the French first settled along the coast. Remember, they came over to discover New Orleans. They came along the Gulf, came into Lake Pontchartrain. So Mardi Gras started in Mobile. We hijacked it from Mobile and took it to another level here in New Orleans. So, get that myth out the way. Now, you see the level of the river now. It's down. That river will come up almost even to this dock on a high river. That's when we start looking at our floodgates, closing our floodgates up and levees. That river is 200 feet deep in water and 100 feet deep or more in mud. It's continuously dredged along the docks here to keep it open for major ships, dredging, shooting mud and sediment back out into the stream. The muddy Mississippi. It starts off in a park in Minnesota, right by the Canadian border, and it comes all the way down river to the Gulf of Mexico. They tell me you can jump across the ditch where the Mississippi starts at. Now, I've never been up, but I've had guests tell me that. This is a Louis Armstrong riverboat. Now, they decommissioned a lot of our riverboats because they were made out of wood. This thing was commissioned and ready to go beginning of the year. Well, guess what? I don't believe it ever sells. It's a party boat. They have concerts and party on it, and they cruise up and down the river. And that's what the older boats they used to do. I used to go to concerts on the riverboat. Real neat. Because there's nobody. If you missed a boat, you missed a concert. So this is the Louis Armstrong Riverboat President and the Creole Queen that cruises. Now I'm not sure. I haven't seen the Creole Queen cruise lately. It's cruising.
Yeah, we're going on Monday.
The Creole Queen.
Yep.
Okay. Well, see, I learned from you.